What's going on? So this video we're going to teach you how to build our 2.5 condenser can. There's the parts. You're going to get 5 foot of coil, a body that's rolled, has the hole drilled in it and a seam, and then you're going to use the rest of the parts that you get with the build kits, your jar of flux, brush, solder, and clamps. You're still going to need the wet rags, propane. You shouldn't need the pliers for this part, but it's nice to have just in case. So we're just going to level it out, keep the seam at 12 o'clock so you don't have solder tend to drip off either side. And we're going to flux this just like you did with the other seams. You want to get a nice and thick coat underneath and on top so the solder runs in between the two layers of copper and you get a nice solid bond. This one doesn't need to be super thick or strong or anything because there's not going to be pressure in it. It's basically just needs to hold water. So keep that in mind. Don't spend too much time or too much solder making a half-inch seam on top of something that doesn't need to be bulletproof. So right here, it's going to be the same thing as the other seams. You're going to want to put even pressure or even heat all across the seam to keep from getting any burn marks and having to skip it and come back and reflux and resolder. So I'm just trying to keep an even amount of heat across it to keep from having to redo. Normally you can get this seam in one pass, just going over and then looking in the inside after you're done to make sure that you have a solid seam. You can tell I'm probably going to go back and clean up those spots that charred up a little bit, and that's no big deal. You just want to make sure you get a good strength first run. Cool it off, wipe off all the charred spots, and then reflux the spots that you missed, and just straighten your line up just for aesthetics. So the condenser you get with the kit will not come with the in and out option. It's just going to be the normal condenser can with coil inside of it. That doesn't mean it's not something you can add yourself if you decide. You'll be able to just order the in and out option separate, and all you'll do is drill 2 3/8 holes in the side of the can and solder in 2 pieces of 3/8 pipe about 3 inches long. That'll be what the clear tubing fits over to circulate your water. And that's what we use our mash transfer pumps with also during the run. So after you transfer the mash from your fermentation barrel into the pot, you'll then unplug the pump and move it over to where your condenser is, where you'll run your water into the bottom and it'll dump out the top into a separate bucket. And with the circulation, it won't ever have enough time to be stagnant and gain heat, so you'll always have cold water. It really helps for longer runs and stuff like that. You don't have to pay attention to your ice or anything like that. You just plug in the pump and you're done. So with this, I'm just blending and making sure I have a pretty seam across. One little weird spot, and then we're going to move on to the bottom. Done. Now that hole is going to come pre-drilled. It's going to be a little bigger than 3/8 because you're going to have the coil coming in at an angle. So if it was just a straight 3/8 hole, it wouldn't fit. Um, you just kind of want to bend it into shape over there and make sure that you have it setting right, close enough to where you can fill the little gap with solder. The only important part here, obviously, is to make sure that you have your flux layered on good, a nice generous coat, and you want to make sure that you get that outlet hole on the bottom and not accidentally flip the condenser over and then your condenser is upside down. You'll just have to unsolder and swap it around. But you basically just want to center this up and run your seam all the way around the bottom, and then you'll go back around and clean up any gaps you may have missed and make sure that you have a nice uniform seam all the way outside the lip. And again, this is just like the body seam. It doesn't need to be a 1/4 inch thick or anything like that just because there's no pressure going into this. It's just a container for water. So you just want to make sure it's watertight and you're good to go. Now when you get to the seam, you're going to want to just jump past it. Lay the solder as fast as you can and then move on so you don't open up too much of that seam you spent so much time making pretty and thick. I'll normally start away from it so I can begin heating the copper, and then when I get to it, it just takes a little bit of heat to get it to temp and to take the solder, and then you can just jump right past it real quick. You're going to have it open up like that. It's inevitable. You just want to keep it from opening as much as possible, but as soon as you're done, you're going to go back and fix that seam anyway, so don't spend all your time trying to keep that from opening up because it's impossible. Just go back after you're done and just make sure you have a good, clean, solid seam around the entirety of the bottom. Um, if you see any spots where it looks like it's, layered or something like that, you'll just put a little heat to it, clean it up, and then move on. There we are, going back and just refilling, just to make sure you don't get a little tiny hole there or something like that. But it's easy enough. It should only take a little bit of heat to fill that little drip spot. So now that we're done with the can, you're going to go on to the coil. You might need to play with this, bend it out a little bit to get it to go in with the least amount of resistance. I normally go ahead and pull out a part like that and then try and get it in there at an angle, and as soon as you get the outlet through the condenser wall, you then move to the outside and pull from the outside, and it's a little bit easier. It's soft copper, so it shapes real easily. It shouldn't be hard to manipulate it how you need to get it in there. But normally, as soon as you get it out like that, it's simple enough to just go around to the outside and pull and kind of, move it back and forth and get it wiggled out to where you want it to sit, and then you'll just tack it in place before you bend the coil up to the top of the can. It's really important that you keep this at 12 o'clock so you don't get any crazy runs around the side of the body. And what you want to do is put all the heat onto the coil, because its walls are thicker than the sheet copper we used for the can. Once you get the coil to temp, as soon as it takes solder, the condenser can will be more than ready. So it's just like sweating a pipe. You just want it to melt and flow right around that hole and just seal right up. And again, it doesn't need to be a thick, huge bead across there because there's no pressure. It just needs to be solid. Good to go. Now you're ready to run.